We're going to be reading in 1 Samuel chapter 1. I'm going to read a portion of this, and then I wanted to share something with you from 1 Samuel pertaining to Mother's Day. A lot of you are probably familiar with this story. It's the story about Hannah, and I would like to look at that this morning together as a church. It begins in verse 1 of chapter 1. There was a certain man of Ramathaim Zophim, of the hill country of Ephraim, whose name was Elkanah, the son of Jeroham, son of Elihu, son of Tohu, son of Zuph, an Ephrathite. He had two wives. The name of the one was Hannah, the name of the other Peninnah. And Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. Now this man used to go up year by year from his city to worship and to sacrifice to the Lord of hosts at Shiloh, where the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were priests of the Lord. On the day when Elkanah sacrificed, he would give portions to Peninnah, his wife, and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah he gave a double portion, because he loved her. Though the Lord had closed her womb, and her rival used to provoke her grievously to irritate her, because the Lord had closed her womb. So it went on year by year. As often as she went up to the house of the Lord, she used to provoke her. Therefore Hannah wept and would not eat. Now, we're going to go on through the passage, but I'm going to stop right there. In 1 Samuel, it begins this chapter called Samuel about somebody named Hannah. You notice that's interesting? It's because this book, it's the origin story of the prophet we call Samuel. The Bible calls Samuel. And so this book really is about Samuel. It's not about Hannah, but it starts with Hannah. As any story of anybody great in history ever did, it started with their mother. The mothers are the ones who bore each one of us and brought us into this world and had those first developmental years with us. So you look at any great man or woman in history, and the story actually started with the mother, for better or for worse. Now here we have the story of Hannah. And it's interesting, it tells us actually it's a story of two mothers, if you noticed. It talks about a man by the name of Elkanah, which would be Samuel's father, but he has two wives. You notice the Bible tells us that? There's Hannah and there's Peninnah. Now, under the Old Covenant, this was not a terribly uncommon thing. Actually, Abraham had two wives, Sarah and Hagar, and his grandson Jacob had two wives, Rachel and Leah. So it's not a terribly uncommon thing to have two wives. But the Bible doesn't tell us this just to give us a piece of history. It tells us it for a reason. And I always encourage you, brethren, when you're reading the Bible, to always ask, why is this information there? Why is this important? Why does the Bible mention that Elkanah had two wives? And here's the reason. And you'll find this very often as you read the Bible. It gives us, yes, literal history, but it tells us for a reason. That when the Bible gives us two characters, it's usually describing a contrast between the two. It's showing the Peninnah and Hannah as contrasting each other. Hannah is the righteous one. Peninnah is the unrighteous one. You can see this all the way through the book of Genesis when you see Hagar and Sarah. Not that there's anything wrong with Hagar, but Sarah is seen as the wife of promise, and Hagar is seen as the wife of the flesh. Or you think of Jacob and Esau. God says, Jacob I have chosen, Esau I have hated. Is there anything wrong with Esau? No, but it's showing God's plan and contrasting the two. And you'll find this very often through the Bible. When it brings up two characters, yes, they're two real people who really exist and the events are real, but the Bible is telling us that this for a reason, to contrast the two, that the righteous might stand out and that it might be able to communicate to us the truth that the Bible is trying to tell us in this moment. It's trying to tell us something, the Bible. And so when it's looking at Hannah, notice Hannah has no children. She's the righteous one. But she has no children. And she has one who it actually tells us in this passage is her enemy. Not that they are at war with each other, but there's a turmoil in the home, a struggle that's happening between these two women. Because the one is the righteous and the one is unrighteous. And the righteous one is without the blessing, and the unrighteous one is flourishing. Now, brethren, I'm speaking to my brothers and sisters in Christ. Does it ever feel like sometimes the way of the world is easier and more prosperous, and it's almost easier to just give up and throw in the towel? because it seems like everybody else is getting by just fine without God. And here I am trying to be faithful to the Lord, and it doesn't always go the way that I want it to. Listen, Hannah's in this similar boat. Hannah is faithful to the Lord, but she does not have any children. And worse, it says that Peninnah torments her. Peninnah, she rubs it in. She's rubbing in the fact that I have children and you don't. You have no prodigy that's going to come after you. Now, this is very significant for a woman. We maybe don't feel this so much today, but it is all throughout human history very significant if a woman could not have children. It was the greatest curse because it is what the woman, even in her physical makeup, is designed to do, to have children. My wife has commented this to me, and she says, it's just amazing to see how God's designed a woman's body. The distinctions that a woman's body are different from a man's body in, are all those distinctions are distinctions that make her be able to have babies. That's the key difference between a woman's physiological makeup from a man's. So it's amazing how God has designed a woman's body so beautifully, it's so wonderful, and for the function of having children. And so throughout generations, women have always been plagued if they could not have children, because it is the main thing for which God has created them for. And therefore, no greater curse could be had than if a woman could not fulfill that duty. There would be no greater curse than if a woman could not raise a prodigy, could not raise a descendant and an heir, because that is who she leaves behind in the world. Now, we men, we might think of different things. I might think of building a business that I want to leave for generations to come. I might think of we got a lot of fishermen here. You might think of wanting to build up your fishing business and be able to pay off your boat, right? And be able to pay off your license, so that way your son can take over and not have that, and he can build it and take it a step further. You might be thinking about this as a man, but for the woman, it is to be able to raise a seed, be able to propagate her offspring. Hannah can't do that because the scriptures say her womb is closed. She is barren, even though she is the righteous one. Now it goes on in verse 7, it says, it went on year by year, as often as she went up to the house. And the Lord, the house of the Lord, she used to provoke her. That's Peninnah would provoke Hannah. Therefore Hannah wept and would not eat. Hannah is distraught about her condition. It says she's so distraught about it, she's weeping and she's fasting. Now they're going up to sacrifice to the Lord. This is what they're doing. It was required in the Old Testament law. They would once a year go and make sacrifices, and they would eat those sacrifices. I've spoken about that before here. The beauty of the Lord's table, which we're going to be partaking of, is Christ has offered himself a sacrifice, and we come and we eat Christ, his sacrifice. That's what the communion elements are, and we partake of the blessing. It was what happened in the Old Testament when they would sacrifice an animal. They didn't just go to waste. They went to people's wastes. So pardon the pun there. When an animal was sacrificed, they also ate the animal. It also became physical nourishment. They didn't waste the animals. Well, they're going to sacrifice here, and they're going up to make sacrifices, but Hannah is not eating the sacrifice. Hannah is fasting. Fasting is, the word fasting means to cover your mouth. It means not to intake anything. And you see this frequent throughout the Old Testament, but we also see this in the New Testament, and the church has continued this tradition right on through to the present. If you've ever wondered why people fast, the scriptures tell us, among many things, what fasting does is it is a voluntary ceasing to eat. Now, if you're being starved because you can't afford food, that's not fasting, that's starvation. Fasting is a voluntary ceasing to eat so that you can be focused on prayer and humbling yourself in the presence of the Lord. And fasting is the most powerful way to do that. So you see people do it in the Old Testament, and it is also something which we are taught to do as Christians, to practice self-denial and to grow closer to the Lord. Actually, interestingly, the church used to have weekly times for fasting. I think it was Wednesdays and Thursdays, where the whole church would be united in fasting during those days. Hannah is fasting because she's unable to have children, but she's tormented by the unrighteous wife, Peninnah, who is able to have children. Now it also tells us that Elkanah, he blessed Peninnah and Peninnah's children, which would be Elkanah's children as well. He gave them sacrifices and he would take care of them. And this is what the blessing speaks of. He would take care of them. But it tells us that he blessed Hannah more. Now notice this, it says because he loved her. Elkanah loved Hannah. She was the wife that he loved, he cherished, he blessed. It says that because he blessed her, he was multiplying wealth upon her, even though Peninnah also had her own children. So in Elkanah's eyes, he goes, I'm doing the best I can as a husband to take care of my wife Hannah. I'm loving her, I'm bestowing blessings upon her. And so it says in verse 8, Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Hannah, why do you weep? And why do you not eat? And why is your heart sad? Am I not more to you than 10 sons? As Elkanah is looking at his wife, he's thinking, I'm taking good care of you. And he sees she's still worked up. Now, all of us husbands, we can fully understand how Elkanah is feeling here. It's like, what more can I do? I don't know why she's worked up, right? You just want to fix the situation. You just want her to be happy. But she's not happy. And so he says, Hannah, what more do you need? I'm blessing you. I'm taking care of you. And what Elkanah is thinking is that Hannah is worried about what's going to happen to her when she gets old, because she doesn't have any sons who are going to take care of her. Peninnah has sons and daughters who are going to take care of her when she's old. But Hannah has no one to take care of her when she is old. And so Elkanah is taking care of her. And Elkanah's thinking, Hannah's worried about being provided for. So he says, look, Hannah, look how well I'm taking care of you. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. Am I not better to you than 10 sons? You see, here's the thing that Elkanah did not understand, is he assumed that Hannah's problem was a selfish one. Now, I say selfish, more of a self-seeking one. There's an aspect where we are supposed to take care of ourselves. You know, after this service, most of us are going to go and we're going to eat a meal. I don't know if I would say that's a selfish thing to do. It's a good thing to do. I hope you go and eat a meal. But it is something that's kind of self-seeking, right? Not in a bad way, but in a self-seeking way. And so Elkanah thinks Hannah is self-seeking. He thinks she's worried for herself. And he's got it all wrong. Hannah is not worried about her being taken care of in her old age. Hannah's values here are much higher than Elkanah has realized. Hannah is concerned not for her protection, she's concerned for the glory of God. You see, she's the righteous one and she has no children to bring to the Lord. But Peninnah, the unrighteous one, the worldly one, she has her own prosperity. She has her own prodigy. Elkanah is thinking she's worried about her own future, but she's not. She's worried about the future of the Lord. She's worried about his children. And she has nothing to bring him. She can't fulfill her purpose to bring a godly heritage to the Lord. And this is what's troubling Hannah. In verse 9 it says, after they had eaten and drunk in Shiloh, Hannah rose. Now Eli the priest was sitting on the seat beside the doorpost of the temple of the Lord. She was deeply distressed, and she prayed to the Lord and wept bitterly. Hannah is overwhelmed with a sense of grief at her barrenness. She's praying to the Lord, and she's weeping in his presence. And then notice what she says in verse 11. She says, she vowed a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your servant and remember me and not forget your servant, but will give to your servant a son, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall touch his head. Now, she makes a vow to the Lord. She says, Lord, if you will give me a son, and then I will give him back to you. Look, if Hannah wanted a son for selfish reasons, she wouldn't be vowing to give him back to the Lord. That shows the purity of her heart. She wanted a godly offspring to the Lord. And this is the beautiful role of motherhood. This is, I would invite you mothers to look at Hannah and realize that Hannah encompasses fully your duty as a mother. It is to raise a godly heritage to the Lord, if you are a Christian. If you're not a Christian, then you are the enemy of God. But I would welcome you to be part of his family, because you can be today. But for my brothers and sisters in Christ, or my sisters in Christ who are mothers, your calling is like that of Hannah, where she she's vowed actually to the Lord to take this child, if God would bless her with one, if God would bless you with a child or two or three or however many, that you say, this child, God, it's yours, and I offer it back up to you. And notice what she says. Neither will a razor touch his head. She's not going to shave his head. The significance here being that it was a Nazirite vow that she was going to put him under, that he was going to serve as in the temple, to do service to the Lord. This is the significance of no razor touching his head. This is what it's getting at, it's referring to. He's going to be consecrated, set apart to the Lord. Now, in the New Testament, we don't have a few people who are called to be priests or Levites. In the New Testament, every single child of God is a Levite and a priest, the scriptures tell us. And so every child, mothers, that you raise is to be set apart in the similar way as a Nazirite unto the Lord. They don't belong to you, they don't belong to me. They belong to God, and it's our duty as parents to train them up, to set them apart for the mission that God is launching them out in. In verse 11 says in verse 12 it says, as she continued praying before the Lord, Eli, this is the high priest, he observed her mouth. Hannah was speaking in her heart, only her lips moved, and her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli took her to be a drunken woman. And Eli said to her, how long will you go on being drunk? Put your wine away from you. But Hannah answered, no, my lord, I am a woman troubled in spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but I have been pouring out my soul before the Lord. Do not regard your servant as a worthless woman, for all along I have been speaking out of my great anxiety and vexation. Then Eli answered, go in peace, and the God of Israel grant you your petition that you have made to him. And she said, let your servant find favor in your eyes. Then the woman went her way and ate, and her face was no longer sad. As Hannah is praying and she's pouring out her soul to the Lord, she's come to him with her burden. Brethren, come to the Lord with your burdens. Her burden was not a selfish one. The scriptures tell us that the reason often we do not have is because we do not ask God. And then it says, sometimes we ask and don't receive what we want. This is James chapter 5. Sometimes we ask and we don't receive because we ask selfishly to spend it on our passions. If we're asking selfishly, yes, God is not going to give us the things that we're asking for because it would destroy us. It would be feeding sin which is within. But when our hearts do not condemn us, as 1 John says, we have confidence before the Lord that whatever we ask, we receive from him. When we come as God's people asking with a pure heart for the glory of God, he will hear. He will hear those prayers, the prayers of the righteous. And Hannah's come and she's poured out her soul to the Lord. She's asked not for herself anything because she's already received blessing from Elkanah. She's not burdened for herself. She's burdened for the glory of God. And as she's praying, the priest comes in. By divine appointment, I believe. God brought the priest in at that time. His first thought was she's drunk. His first thought was she's out of her mind. Because she was in such an emotional state and that her lips were moving, and even though no words were coming out. But she corrects him. And she says, I am vexed, and I'm bearing my soul to the Lord. So, what was Eli's response? May the Lord bless you. What does he say? He says, go in peace, and the God of Israel grant you your petition that you have made to him. And so she goes. Hannah goes with this blessing from the high priest, that God has granted the petition. And they go home. Elkanah and Hannah, they do the thing that married couples do, and God opens Hannah's womb, and she conceives this child, just as she had prayed. She conceives this child, and in verse 21 it says that the man Elkanah and his wife went up to offer to the Lord the yearly sacrifice and to pay his vow. But Hannah did not go up, for she said to her husband, as soon as the child is weaned, I will bring him, so that he may appear in the presence of the Lord and dwell there forever. Elkanah, her husband, said to her, do what seems best to you. Wait until you have weaned him. Only may the Lord establish his word. So the woman remained and nursed her son until she weaned him. Hannah honored her vow, but she didn't go up right away. Why? Because she had to wean the child first. Her job was not yet finished. God had promised, he had answered her prayer, and now she's going to fulfill her duty. But she's got to wean the child first. And when she weans the child, she goes, then I will come up and I will worship and I will bring him with me to the Lord. She does not go and worship first because she's not fulfilled her duty. Do you notice that? She first fulfills her duty and then goes and worships. Now, I'm not saying before you raise your kids, you can't come to church or worship. That's not what we're talking about here. But it's emphasizing her commitment to her vow. She is not yet ready to go and make the yearly sacrifice because her duty is not yet fulfilled. And even the scriptures will tell us, look, if you're here to make a sacrifice to God and you realize there's something that you have between you and your brother, don't come and partake of the communion table. Don't come and make a sacrifice. No, go and make it right first with your brother. Here, this Hannah is honoring her vows. She's going to do her duty, and when she has done her duty, she brings Samuel into the temple and commits him to the Lord and turns it all over to him. Hannah fulfilled her vow. She fulfilled her promise to the Lord. If we had more mothers like Hannah, we would have more Samuels in the church. You see, this book starts with Hannah. The rest of the thing is about Samuel. Hannah is not the main theme of the book. But there would be no Samuel without Hannah. And mothers, sometimes it's like that. Mothers don't always get the front row action all the time. Mothers are at home, and nobody sees mothers. The kids do, and they don't always give the appreciation that mothers are deserving of. The husbands do, and they don't always voice the appreciation either. And other than husbands and children, nobody really cares about mothers. I mean, we do in the church, but really not many people care. If you go out as a mother and people ask you what you do, and you say, I am a mother, that's not what they're looking for, is it? Nobody's impressed with that response, are they? And yet, that is the most important thing you can do as a woman, is to be a mother. In 1 Timothy 2:15 it says, and it's speaking of the woman, yet she shall be saved through childbearing, if they continue in faith and love and holiness with self-control. Mothers, beware and guard yourself from the enemy, the devil, who distracts you from your holy calling. Indeed, many women have left off or neglected the holy calling of mothering to pursue careers and other lesser things. And truly they pierce themselves with many woes. No other purpose is so grand to a woman than to raise godly sons and daughters to the King. If you neglect this duty while you are young, then you will realize your folly when you are old, but it will be too late. You have only a short time to employ yourself in this work. So keep focused on it for the time given you. One day you will rest, and the sons and daughters that you have raised will rise up and call you blessed, just as we read in the first passage this morning in Proverbs 31. One day that will happen to you. They will rise up and they will call you blessed. But do not grow weary in the meantime. Be about the work as Hannah did, to raise godly sons and daughters for the King. Your calling is a noble one, and we are thankful for it.